If you want to be seen as the authority, if you want tons of qualified, super qualified traffic to your business, the best thing you can do is be ranking on the first page, especially in the top three for your terms. And when someone's looking for your business, your type of business, if you're ranking there in Google, you are going to get the phone calls and they're going to be ready to buy and they're going to see you as the authority because people see ranking high on Google as the authority. That's why I brought Chris Dreyer on. No matter what you want to rank for, Chris Dreyer has helped the most competitive search term there is out there, personal injury attorney, be ranking on the first page in the country for his client. He's going to break down exactly how they did it for the client, how he stays on top of these SEO trends, and also how personal injury attorneys and any professional should be looking at their marketing as a whole if they want to move to elite status. It's an awesome interview, and I know you're going to enjoy it. Welcome to the Garlic Marketing Show. We are going to talk about one of my favorite topics today, SEO, with one of the masters in it of search engine optimization. But before we get started, don't forget this is brought to you by storycruise.com, the #1 resource for finding videographers and editors that know marketing so you don't throw your money out the window and you actually make money with your videos. All right, Mr. Chris Dreyer from rankings.io, thank you for being on.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
And today we're going to talk personal injury SEO and why, if you're not a personal injury attorney, why should you be watching this? Because personal injury attorney is one of the top 5 hardest terms to rank for. So if you can do that, you can do anything. It's kind of like going to New York City. It's the New York City of SEO. Chris, let's talk a little bit about rankings.io. What is rankings? And, obviously it's an elite personal injury SEO firm. You only focus on personal injury, but tell me a little bit more about what you do for these law firms.
Yeah, so you kind of took the words out of my mouth. So we work with elite personal injury attorneys and we only do SEO. It's a comprehensive service. So if you think of like a span of control, we're a wide span of control with a lot of expertise. So we have a content specialization where we're creating content for practice area pages, blogs, press releases. We have a team that specializes in on-site SEO that will optimize your website. We have web developers that will architecturally rebuild your site for a better user experience, designers. We've got a local SEO team for helping you rank in Google Maps with building citations, helping with reviews, link builders who help promote your site. And then it's just a cohesive approach. We're a traction-based agency, a traction-based business where we tie in everything into a longer goal and we break it down, the meeting pulse into smaller increments, 90 days, then weekly. But that's kind of the big 80-20 about what we do.
And so, I want to get into, because you have a client who ranks #1 for car accident attorney in the country, #1 for personal injury attorney in the country, not just in their local city, which is amazing. It's so difficult and it's worth a ton of money, millions of dollars. I want to get into exactly how you did that. But why did you focus just on search engine optimization? Why not do everything for everyone?
That's a great question. So my background when I first started doing digital marketing was in SEO. I was an affiliate marketer. I had over 100 sites. I ranked #1 for double chin, #1 for stained concrete, acai fruit, alcohol withdrawal, alcohol poisoning. Even if you go to Amazon.com and you type how to stain concrete floors, you're going to see my book from 2012, still #1. And that's what I did. It was just an extreme obsession about SEO. And I've never deviated. I've had some minor shiny object syndrome where maybe I started to dip my toes into other things, but I just really stayed focused because that was my passion. That's where my expertise lied. And I know that there's a lot of full service, I use that term loosely, full service digital marketing agencies out there. But the truth is, when there's something as competitive as the personal injury space, you have to have focus, you have to have expertise. And that's really what it's all about and why I stayed on that path.
It is. And you're pretty competitive from what I understand too. It's fun to compete, isn't it?
Yeah. So, you take a plumbing company in a small town, you throw up a landing page and you're ranking #1. There's not a lot of, as long as you do things the foundational way, you can rank really well in these home services and some of these other niches. In the personal injury space, when you have 100 or more attorneys all competing for that top spot, you have to think differently. You have to think about, what can I not only do better than them, but how can I create a gap or this barrier so that they don't even have a chance to beat me in the future.
Yes. Yes. And that's what the cool part about SEO, and also the daunting part about SEO. The cool part is you create the gap and get people way ahead. The daunting part is I've got to get over that gap. So is it too late to get into the SEO game for these highly competitive terms?
Well, it's not too late. You have to be strategic, right? So if you're in a major metro and let's just take Chicago as an example. That's kind of my city that I use as an example. If you want to rank number one for car accident lawyer and you don't have a large budget or a ton of time and resources, that's going to be a difficult journey. If you want to rank for, nursing home neglect or motorcycle accidents or some of these other areas of maybe not necessarily car, but maybe bicycle, pedestrian, those aren't necessarily as difficult. Take a look at Uber and Lyft. I mean, those are great cases. They carry a lot more insurance. There are ways to carve out a space in any metro. And it's never too late. You just have to use what assets you have as leverage against your competition. And you have to be different.
Yes. And that is important in SEO to be different. But what is being different, it seems, and we're going to talk a little more about the tactics, but is it worth it if if I've got TV running, if I've got a ton of referrals come in, I've got all these referral sources, why should I worry about SEO? Why should I go spend, $100,000, $200,000 a year to get number one for a personal injury attorney in my market?
Well, that's a great question. So if you're doing all these other avenues and advertisings, most of the time they're going to your website. They're using their mobile device to find you. So they're going to use Google to find you. And if you're not doing SEO and you don't have those basic foundational things, your reviews, your Google My Business setup, all that other advertising is not going to have the ROI or the same effectiveness. They all kind of work together. The better your brand is, the better your click-through rates and recognizability are. And it's kind of a cohesive strategy.
Gotcha. And how does, my opinion is everything kind of funnels down to SEO. And SEO, search engine optimization, being ranking. And if you're not a personal injury attorney, whatever business you're in, people are going to still compare you to something, and they're going to go do that search. And how have you seen that affect some of your clients? Can you tell me stories of how once they start ranking, it made like the client you have ranking number one right now in the country, how has that affected their business?
Oh, it's been tremendous. We've heard sayings like, it's the best ROI, the best marketing investment they've had. The thing I love about SEO is there are so many opportunities. You talk about a funnel, awareness, consideration, or awareness, engagement, consideration. You can create content for any aspect of the client's journey. And you can do the same with video, which is, I know, is your expertise. And it all compounds. You're creating this evergreen content, and you're basically making an asset. You have a long-term investment as opposed to leasing visibility. Not that direct response marketing is bad. I fully endorse PPC and ads and those types of things, but it is leasing. It's direct response. This is creating virtual real estate. That's what it is. And that's why I like it. And the other thing about ranking for SEO is when you rank number one, you're perceived as the best attorney. So if I'm an out-of-state attorney and I need to send over a referral, if I don't know anyone in that location, I'm going to do a Google search and I'm going to see who's at the top, who has the most reviews, and that's where I'm going to start.
Yes. And no matter what, like you said, the perception is there. It's funny. I tell this story a lot, but one day I was watching the Today Show and I was like, I don't remember why. And it's not something I regularly watch. I'm kind of embarrassed saying I was watching the Today Show because I should be working. But the head of Johns Hopkins Hospital, like major hospital, research hospital in the country, came on and she was talking about some sort of treatment that they are experts in. And then she said, you know what? And we're number one for Google. So that means that we are the best. And it's fun. It's amazing to me that even like highly educated people, that perception that if you're number one in Google, you are the best. It's crazy, isn't it?
It's insane. You know, it's a perception thing. You rank at the top. You know, I hear a lot of times, well, I'm a better trial attorney. Why I should rank at the top? Well, you got to be intentional about SEO. The other thing is the best terms to rank for are using those superlatives. Top attorney near me, best attorney near me. And it could be any business. So your review count and score is incredibly important because that's how you rank in the map pack for those terms. Imagine if let's use St. Louis, that's near me. If you went on vacation to St. Louis, I don't know why you would, but maybe you watch a Cardinals game. But you went to St. Louis and you typed in best restaurants near me. You wouldn't expect to see 1-star and 2-star restaurants in the search results. You'd expect to see the 4.9s, the 5s. So that's how you rank for those superlatives. Best restaurant near you have to have great reviews, and that's an SEO component.
And so let's talk about, since you've gotten to SEO components, what are the most important factors right now for ranking number one for something like personal injury attorney in the country?
So the first thing is you have to have exceptional content. The days are gone where you could write a thin article and just put up a landing page. It has to be exceptional. It has to be different. We're probably going to talk about this a lot. It has to be different. So if just because your article passes Copyscape for uniqueness doesn't mean it's unique. It may not get you in trouble for plagiarism, but it's not providing any value if it's all citing from the same sources. So you have to create content that has a different approach, a different opinion, a different structure. That's incredibly important. And we can get to how that individual Dolman Law Group who ranks incredibly well for car accident lawyer nationwide, it's because the content is structured differently than any other piece of content in the nation. It's a roundup of multiple experts. So that's number one. You have to have exceptional content. It has to be different. And the second thing is you got to promote. You got to promote your firm. You have to be intentional about reviews. You need to be conscious about acquiring links from trusted sources. And I think of content as like the foundation. Again, if you're in Chicago, everybody's going to have a car accident lawyer page. So what's the differentiator? There's external factors, prominence, links, citations, reviews, those types of things.
Yeah. And let's get into, I'm going to get a little deeper because you talk about prominence.
Yeah.
What does, we all know about reviews. Mm-hmm. And you should know about links, but what is prominence?
That's a great question. I'm really glad that we dove into this one. So if you think of the word prominence itself, it means being everywhere. Well, how does Google determine what prominence is? That's content that's on external sites. That's media mentions, press, citations, review count and score. You mention it. But here's the big thing. Your content on these external sites has to be robust and exceptional. If you go do a guest post and you're trying to build a backlink for your firm's website and you go write this 300-word article and you shove a link in there, that is not going to pass any authority back to your site. Zero. I don't care if the site's a DR 95. It's because Google's weeding out this thin, low-quality stuff, and it's not going to pass any authority back to your site. So when you go to set up your Yelp profile, or you go to set up your lawyer awards, your super lawyers, all these things, those profiles need to be robust, full of information, images, video, audio. You can't just create a thin profile. It's not going to carry any weight. It's not going to pass any authority.
And and there you go, passing authority. But you mentioned video in there, and I want to talk real quick. How are you using video, not just to rank videos, but how are you using video to help personal injury attorneys rank better?
Oh, I love that. So the first thing is video. I consider it a barrier to entry. And what I mean by that is there are video directories where you can't get a link unless you have a video. So if I'm an attorney and I create video content, I can get a link from those sources where my competitor who doesn't create video can't have that same opportunity. In the same way, if you're an attorney and you have a podcast, you can get links on the podcast directories, or you can get links from other people's shows. Same for PDFs. Let's say you convert your content into a PDF. We're talking about all different forms of media. You can get links in that way. So YouTube, how else are we using it? It keeps users engaged on your site longer. And you have to understand that Google can't recognize the smile on a consumer's face after they read an article. What it can look at is metrics like average time on page. So if you've got two car accident lawyer pages, and Google sees that a consumer stayed on one page for 3 minutes and another one 30 seconds, which page do you think Google thinks is better? Even though they both may answer consumer intent, by having a video on that page, it's a better signal for UX and helps you rank better.
Love it. Love it. And what types of videos are your clients using to really rank better? Is there a specific type of video? Is there a specific place you're using video? Is there a specific place you're putting video in there?
Yeah, so I see our clients creating just videos for all aspects of the client journey. So on the homepage, I see them featuring consumer stories. I would love to talk about your video stories, because I think those are perfect. Videos on the about page, because we like to do business with who we know, like, and trust. And when you watch someone, you hear their tone, and you get to know if you would like working with that individual. You feel like you would trust them. There's FAQ videos that can answer maybe questions you have about the incident you're in. There's sales type videos for your practice area pages. And really, we see our most successful clients incorporating video from all aspects of that funnel: awareness, engagement, consideration.
Yeah. I mean, understanding the whole funnel is so important, that whole journey. And I love that it's affecting SEO. So we're going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to have Mr. Chris Dreyer from rankings.io. Make sure to check him out. And before we go to a quick break, Chris, you also have a podcast, a lawyer marketing podcast. Is it the Lawyer Marketing Podcast? What's the name of your podcast?
It is the Rankings Podcast with Chris Dreyer.
There you go. You can remember it. Make sure to check it out. He has top attorneys, top marketers, top business people on there. But we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back. And Chris is going to tell us exactly how they got to #1 for personal injury attorney, or on the first page for personal injury attorney in the country. We'll be right back after this message from our sponsor. I hope you're enjoying this incredible interview with Chris Dreyer from rankings.io. He's going to tell us all about how he got to #1 for personal injury attorney, one of his clients. It's a lot of work, but it is worth it. There's nothing more important for your business, whether you're a professional, whatever type of professional you are, than marketing. But if you are an attorney, one of those powerful things you can do besides ranking is video, and video done correctly, video done across the entire customer journey, all sorts of video marketing. And that's why I'm proud to announce the Giants of Video Lawyer Edition. We just started putting it together, but you can opt in to get a hold of it for free down below. So make sure to opt in at giantsofvideo.com/legal to opt in for this incredible summit. I'm going to have tons of guests talking about everything from Facebook to YouTube to SEO to customer service to increasing profits, all using video. And best of all, it's free. We are back with Mr. Chris Dreyer from rankings.io, the #1 personal injury law firm SEO company in the country. Chris, you're not cheap, right? And do you work with a lot of personal injury attorneys?
So those are good questions. So we don't. Right. We were very intentional that we wanted to work with the elite that really wanted to dominate their market. And our minimum investment starts at $15,000 a month. And it's dependent upon the competition and also what assets the firm has. So we start every engagement with an SEO discovery, similar to an attorney does at discovery before they go to trial, to really set targets and understand what it's going to take, what type of investment it's going to take to dominate a market. And, the competition is different in St. Louis compared to Los Angeles. So obviously, in order to make an impact in Los Angeles, it takes a lot more content, a lot more links and promotion. So that's basically how we do things.
Nice, nice. So, tell me a little bit about, you mentioned what the benefits. Why did this law firm that we're going to talk about come to Rankings.io for their SEO?
So this individual, Matt Dolman, we're talking about, it's kind of a funny story. I was actually just providing tons of value back in the old days on Google Plus. I really thought I really missed the mark there. I thought that was going to take off as a social media network, but I was there. I was just answering SEO questions, just providing value, and just doing what I could to help individuals. And I started working with Matt several years ago, and that's how we began. Is I was providing free information about SEO on a social media network.
Yes. And now the only way you get free information on SEO is through this podcast or the Rankings podcast. So Chris, tell me about tell me about getting to number one for personal injury attorney, or first page for personal injury attorney.
Yeah. So the big one is, car accident lawyer nationwide. There's an article. If you Google car accident lawyer and you see Dolman Law, there's a very high chance that he's going to be number one or number two. It doesn't matter where you're at in the country. So the key thing is there's all types of steps involved in this process, but the first thing is, and I come back to this, is you have to be different. So I saw every competitor on the first page had a single point of view. It was their opinion about steps to take after a car accident. And what I did is I reached out to attorneys across the nation, the experts in their city, and asked them the same question. So I contributed this roundup piece of content where it was multiple points of view to create this article. And it was instantaneously different. There's nothing out there like it. And then, laying the groundwork by doing this and providing value, because these individuals were involved and they got a backlink, they were more willing to reciprocate. I know we talked about Robert Cialdini. We've talked about him, his book, Influence. So we gave them the opportunity to contribute and get a link on Dolman's site. And then when we went and asked for them to reciprocate and help us promote it, and we got links from their sites and other sites and the social media networks, it was a way to get these legal links when, if you try to guest post on a law firm's website, they're going to tell you to take a hike in most cases. But because we already provided value to them, it was a way to get these topically relevant links back to the page. So I guess to kind of summarize, it was doing an analysis, figuring out how to create content that was different, creating a great piece of content, and then utilizing the contributors to help us promote that content in the search engines.
Yeah. And I think, it was a quick summary, but the key was different. And like you said, and having someone that's thinking outside the box, because Chris, I think this is where expertise comes in, and people think, well, marketing is marketing. I'm like, you've been doing this when did you start doing affiliate sites?
So I started, I think, around 2005 or 2006.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 15 years of experience. So you're well past the 10,000 hour mark of Mountain Gladwell, saying you're an expert. And
I was going to say my wife would tell you I'm well past that as
well. But it's an obsession, and that's why, folks. That's why when you really, you can do a lot of this stuff yourself up to a point, but then that ninja tactic, we saw it in Giants of Video. We see it here with Chris Dreyer. That ninja tactic comes at a right time. You have someone that can see through it and then execute on it. And now, how are you keeping them at the top? What are the keys to staying at the top, staying number one?
Yeah, so you have to continually. One of the big this opens up a whole conversation. One of the biggest issues I see in the legal space is they'll go write an article and then they just think they're done. Let me find the new topic. Let me find the new blog I should write. You write your car accident lawyer page and you don't touch it for 4 years, that's a problem. Those are big time problems. So you just have to update and continually upgrade and improve your best content. So you take the information that you can obtain from tools like Google Search Console, Ahrefs, and see what individuals are using to find that article, and then try to answer intent around those queries. And that's how you upgrade your content. It refreshes the published date. And then you just got to keep promoting it. And the other thing is just creating those gaps. What content can I create that would be more difficult for my competition to build? And let me do tons of that.
Gotcha.
Everybody has access to directories. You go fill out a directory, you set it up, you're done. It's easy to do. It's data entry. But these other forms, creating media, video, audio, PDFs, infographics, you name it, those take more time. And each time you do one of those, it's just another barrier for competition.
And speaking of barriers for competition, I want to add a little bonus here because you did a huge data study, right? It was huge and like nothing I've ever seen in an agency, which I was amazed by. Tell me about this data study. What were you looking to find out? What did you do? And how did you create this content?
It kind of came out of necessity because I really wanted to give our clients a competitive advantage. I'm a big numbers guy. So I wanted to understand as much as I could about what would truly have an impact in the personal injury space. So every study, if you look at Brian Dean's studies, which are exceptional, they look at all industries. Well, we know the legal vertical is highly competitive. So I wanted to see what the difference was in the legal space. So we hired a team of data scientists. They reviewed over 112,000 personal injury websites and to see what really made an impact. And that's why we did it. There's nothing else out there like it. And we wanted to just get more information. Now there's going to be tons of follow-up studies because, correlation doesn't equal causation or whatever the saying is. We have to drill in and test other hypotheses, but that's why we did it.
And what points of data did you check out? What were you looking at?
Yeah, we were looking at the top queries for personal injury lawyer and car accident lawyer. So we looked at things like number of referring domains. We looked at metadata like title tags, meta descriptions, number of images, number of reviews, things like that.
And what were some big takeaways from this? And how are you applying that?
I would say one of the most interesting things that we found was, obviously we see the directories like FindLaw and Avo and Justia and expertise.com and Yelp rank incredibly well in the search engines. But one thing that we noticed was the internal pages that were ranking didn't necessarily have a ton of backlinks. It was from the site itself had a ton of links. So it kind of reinforced that equity and page authority travels throughout a site, and you don't necessarily have to get a backlink directly to your sales page to have an impact for SEO. That was a big eye opener. You always hear that you need links directly to the page you're trying to rank, but that's not necessarily true if you have good internal linking, good navigation to allow that authority to pass through a site.
Yes, and it's very technical, but it's an important thing to realize because then you can have pages that are different, right? And content that's different that gets linked to, and that will help all of the rest of your pages. That's
Absolutely.
So where, you talked about Brian Dean. What are some of your big resources for improving your marketing? So
improving my marketing, one of the communities I'm in right now is Traffic Think Tank, Nick Eubanks, and Ian Howell and Matthew Barbie, I believe is those individuals. They have just a private Slack community that's incredible. There's a lot of top SEO specialists in there. And basically every channel in there is about SEO. And if there's something new that changes, that's the place to be. Now it is a paid community, but I get a lot of value there. Also, local wise, Nathan Gotch SEO, he's a St. Louis guy. So he's a good buddy of mine. We meet up for lunch and he's got Gotch SEO Academy. We put all of our team through that. And yeah, it's just constantly staying aware of, we use Feedly to send us to monitor the top blogs, Moz, Ahrefs, Search Engine Land, SEO Roundtable, all these different sites, just to stay abreast of what's out there. Local, Sterling Sky, Joy Hawkins for local SEO. So we're kind of cruising it all.
Love it. And you are a competitive guy. You're not, we don't see your current office, but you have, Thanos behind you. And obviously, you love big moves, working hard. You've grown your business really well over a short time. How do you stay motivated? What books do you read? What keeps you motivated?
Well, we'll start with the motivation thing, because the books, I got to think here, because I'm a big book reader. The motivation thing was drilled into me from my father. He really passed on that you don't do anything half-ass. You only do it to win. Even in our house, is like, playing the game is not fun, winning is fun. So there is a lot of arguments and things like that. So anything I've ever pursued, I've been all in on. So back in the day, full tilt poker, I was a top poker player. If you Google me, you'll see, 6-figure wins on poker. If you, I was a nerd, a collectible card game player for a game called Legends of Five Rings, and I won 4 Kotais, which is state championships. It's just, I've got a little OCD, I get a little obsessive, but that was passed on by my father and in everything that I've done.
Love it.
In terms of books, gosh, so some of my favorites: Traction, EOS. I would say Jim Rohn, 12 Pillars. I love Ultimate Sales Machine, Chet Holmes. I like a lot of Seth Godin stuff. Ready, Fire, Aim. E-Myth Revisited. Gosh, we could go on and on. I could talk about books all day.
Love it. Yeah, it's important. It's important to stay up to marketing. So, before we go, I want to ask this last thing, because I see this with a lot of law firms, and they think that they should just outsource their marketing and not know much about it at all. How important do you think it is for especially elite personal injury attorneys to understand marketing?
Well, that's a great question. You've got to understand at least the foundations. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to understand if the person you're working with is successful. And I would say, at the minimum, read Moz's SEO Beginner's Guide to SEO. Go check out our law firm SEO guide. It's a good overview. That's a minimum. HubSpot has a free certification course for SEO that's like, you can get through it in a few hours. But it's incredibly important, because especially if you're in a major metro, you could waste tens of thousands of dollars and time working with the wrong individual. So you just have to know the foundational components of it.
I think it's so important. When you run a business, I've never read a business book that didn't talk about a good business book that didn't talk about marketing. I mean, you look at, obviously Traction but Good to Great by Jim Collins, and every one of them talks about the importance of marketing. And you look at all the best business leaders, and they're all marketers. So I think that's a great thing to leave on. But Chris, how does someone get in touch with you? What's the process for working with you?
Yeah, so the easiest way to get in touch is to just go to rankings.io. Also, find me on LinkedIn. That's probably I'm probably most active on that social media network, and I accept all invitations or connections. So those are the 2 best ways to get in touch: rankings.io or find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Make sure if you're a personal injury attorney, that's an elite personal injury attorney, and you've got a chance to work with Chris, you've got to do it, because it doesn't work with everyone, and there's only a few markets out there. But Chris, thank you so much for being on the Garlic Marketing Show.
Ian, thanks so much for having me.
And thank you all for listening to Chris Dreyer from rankings.io and myself, Ian Garlic. This has been the Garlic Marketing Show, brought to you by storycruise.com.